Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, February 21st, and today I have Walter West from Texas joining us in about 10 minutes. We're going to be talking about the Ken Paxton lawsuits. He filed a new one against one of the Catholic charities down there in Texas, saying that they are aiding and abetting and human smuggling and that type of thing, which it's probably time that some scrutiny was put on some of these NGOs. But of course, Annunciation House, which is the branch of Catholic Charities that is his focus, is actually hitting back and saying that, you know, they're just wanting to make life hard for them. And of course, they're going to fight big time because, listen, these NGOs are making bank, folks, making bank. I was just reading an article about this NGO in San Diego after the state or city or county, whatever, after they've put $6 million into running this illegal processing center thing that this NGO has put up. They are looking at probably having to close the doors because they've run out of money. But this NGO has already made $6 million. I mean, I know they spend some of that on, you know, what they're doing, but the majority of that is profit, folks. So this is a big business, and these people aren't going to go lightly. These people aren't going to give up their livelihood when they have made so much money. Those are about the only people who are involved in these NGOs who have a good life right now, besides, you know, these corporate job types of people. But middle class Americans, the NGOs got it over you, folks. They're making big bucks. So I kind of like the idea that Ken Paxton is doing this, but we're going to get Walter's perspective because he lives there in Texas, heavily involved with the Republican Party. And that's why I went down to Texas too, and went down to Eagle Pass and Shelby Park and went and spent some time with when we met up with the truck convoy. So he's a great guy to have a conversation with, and I think you're all going to enjoy it. Tomorrow, I have Amanda Shea, who's going to be joining me, and she is a wife of Tim Shea, and he was part of the group of the We Build the Wall, who was indicted by the Southern District of New York. So I want to have a conversation with her about how the Southern District of New York completely ruined their lives, turned their lives upside down, made it impossible for Tim to be able to truly and honestly defend himself in court. And then again, I want to have that conversation with her about where she thinks that money went from the millions and millions of dollars that Southern District of New York confiscated from We Build the Wall. I want to have that conversation with her, so be sure and tune in tomorrow. I've got, that wasn't it. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Annunciation House before Walter comes on. Let me get this up. So, yesterday, Attorney General Ken Paxton announced the office was suing the Annunciation House for failing to comply with the Attorney General's demand to immediately release information about its clients. Paxton suggested the religious nonprofit was worsening illegal immigration, and if a judge sides with the state, the lawsuit could prevent the Annunciation House from operating in Texas. And the Annunciation House released the following statement in response, that supposedly they only had 1 day to turn over a broad swath of records to the Attorney General without an explanation. The Annunciation House asked a court to decide what documents the law permits the Attorney General to access. There is nothing illegal about asking a court to decide a person's rights. The Attorney General has now made explicit that the real goal is not records, but to shut down the organization. It has stated that it considers it a crime for a Catholic organization to provide shelter to refugees. I don't think that it's stated that they think it's a crime for a Catholic organization to provide shelter to refugees. I think it's more of a broad situation where it's illegal to provide refuge for any illegal, right? That's what the problem is. They're not refugees, they're illegals. The Annunciation House went on further to say the Attorney General's illegal, immoral, and anti-faith position to shut down Annunciation House is unfounded. Annunciation House has provided hospitality to hundreds of thousands of refugees for over 46 years. It is a work recognized by the Catholic Church and is listed in the National Catholic Directory. Annunciation House has done this work of accompaniment out of the scriptural and gospel mandate to welcome the stranger. Annunciation House's response to the stranger is no different from that of the schools who enroll children of the refugees, the clinics and hospitals who care for the needs of the refugees, and the churches, synagogues, and mosques who welcome families to join in worship. But there is a difference because the schools are not getting money for these illegal children. The clinics and hospitals are lucky if they get paid for the services that they render to these illegals. And the churches, synagogues, and mosques don't get tithings from these people. In fact, they're probably doing additional work and helping them even more with giving them donations from their churchgoers. So no, it is completely different because Annunciation House is getting money from the federal government. Buku bucks. So there is a difference. And that is why you were doing it in Annunciation House. You're not doing it because of your moral and faithful position. I don't believe that. And folks, I've been down there to El Paso, and I was down there at McClellan, and I've seen at the airports these groups of illegals who come through. And when I was in El Paso, which I'm looking into, and I sent the text to Walter yesterday. There's a particular nun who is also an attorney who that's what first alerted us back when we were down there for We Build the Wall, when we saw them, a large group of illegals with this Catholic nun who was being averted past TSA. Didn't have to go through the x-ray machines. Their backpacks didn't have to go through the x-ray machines. They could walk through carrying a bottle of water, a bottle of Coke, all the things that we as American citizens are not allowed to do to get on a plane. We have to be x-rayed. Our bodies have to be x-rayed. Our bags have to be x-rayed. We have to throw away any liquid over 3 ounces before we even get through TSA. We're not allowed to take open bottles of water and soda through the TSA line with us. And if anything suspicious is found in our bags or through the x-ray machine, then you have to stand there while they search through your bags, rumble through your bags. Or if the x-ray machine or the wand, something goes off, then you're going to be patted down, taken behind the screen and patted down. And sometimes they just do it out in the open. But this is what all of these illegals get to bypass. So as we're watching this is years ago, that's when I wrote the letter and sent pictures and sent videos that we had taken at the airport to Andy Biggs. And that's when they sent a letter to TSA saying, what's going on. But probably 4 or 5 months later, I got a hold of his office and said, what's the response from TSA? And they said, we still haven't heard anything back. So you've seen lots of articles about it, but I think this is something that's being suppressed also because they don't want us to know how these illegals have the upper hand in the United States, how they have a superior position than American citizens do in the United States, how if they commit a crime and you commit the same crime, you're going to get a bigger punishment than the illegal will. This is reality in the United States, folks. And they can just come right over the border, no questions asked. These people aren't vetted. And what's amazing to me is you've got these governors and these city officials in Maine and I can't remember what the other state was. Oh, it's happening in Michigan and somewhere else, where they're actually asking the citizens to open their doors and take these refugees, and that it's a shared responsibility that we have. This isn't a shared responsibility. None of us gave the green light to spend this money and open our borders. You need to get a hold of Joe Biden and Mayorkas and tell him you need some money, more money to fund this. But, again, then that's going to be a further burden on taxpayers. Guaranteed that audits and people who've kind of slipped through the cracks with the IRS, they're going to be going after these people. And I think that they kind of knew this, and this is why they went ahead and hired these additional IRS agents. They knew this was going to come down. They knew that people were going to start bucking the system. People are fed up. And there's a lot of people saying, why are we even paying taxes when they're just being sent to other countries and being spent on illegals who are invading our country? They knew they were going to have IRS agents to go out and start knocking on doors, right? I'm sure more and more Americans would not be willingly giving up their money and filling out a tax return if there was some way out of it. $451 billion of our taxpayer money is going to be paid to support illegals on a federal level. I apologize for always wiping my nose, but I've got allergies and it's always worse in the morning. So sorry about that. I'm not sick all the time. It's just allergies, and it's really bad right now because of things are starting to bloom here in Arizona. Weather's been really nice. And so, yeah, it's going to hit me. Probably even worse in the next couple weeks. So Arizona has just recently, I want to pull this article up because they are working on some, they're working on a law. Well, not a law, but okay, so I'm going to share this with you. Oops. Because, I was really excited about Florida. Cayenne Michael, the angel mom, who's a representative there at the Florida State, she has introduced some more legislation that would, if these illegals have committed crimes and they come back into the state of Florida, that it's going to be charges added up. And so things will be stepped up from misdemeanors to felonies. And it's actually passed through to committee hearings. So I'm going to be anxious to see if it gets to the floor of the House for a vote, because if it gets there in Florida with the supermajority that they have, it's going to pass. It's going to pass in the Senate. And obviously, Governor DeSantis, who's a huge supporter of Cayenne's, will sign it into law. So we're going to keep an eye on that. But Republicans here in Arizona, they are kind of working on things. And the legislative session has seen several bills targeting illegal immigration in Arizona, pushing ahead in both the House and the Senate. The Republican-backed legislative proposals, let me see, a package dubbed SB 1072.0 by immigration rights leaders, seek to address the recent increase in migrant encounters at the southern border. Now, SB 1070 was the immigration bill that Russell Pierce had done many years ago that was so controversial here in Arizona. So now, of course, the people who are against anything targeting illegal immigration are going to call this SB 1070 2.0. But here's what to know. Three identical bills, Senate Bill 1231 and House Bills 2821 and 2748, would classify the crossing of undocumented immigrants outside of a legal port of entry at the southern Arizona border as a state crime and would allow local judges to decide immigration cases. Now, this is exactly what Texas Governor Abbott did. And so this is a good thing because it gives the state a little more teeth. The GOP Joint Legislative Move packages the Arizona Invasion Act is sponsored by Republicans Senator Janae Shamp, Senator David Gowan, Representative Steve Montenegro, and Representative Joseph Chaplik. Both the Senate and the House of Representatives of the Arizona legislature are made up of majority Republican representatives, granting each of these measures a swift passage through committee sessions. And if signed into law, the proposal would also offer protections to local law enforcement involved in the detention and arrest of immigrants, illegals, including civil immunity and the right to compensation for incidents that occurred during the enforcement. The measure would also impact beneficiaries of deferred action and political asylum programs, with the exception of DACA, that have not been approved by the U.S. Congress. HB 2748 further contains an amendment directing the Attorney General to recover any monies owed by the federal government related to costs incurred by Arizona to mitigate illegal immigration. And SB 1231 was scheduled for a third reading on the Senate floor on Tuesday, while both HB 2821 and HB 2748 moved to the House floor after passing the House Rules Committee on Monday. So the Arizona legislators are starting to step up and do something about this. But, there's still a lot more to be done. And we've got to really put pressure on the federal government, and these state legislators need to start stepping up and passing more stringent laws. Welcome, Walter. How are you?
I am sunny and whatever you want to call it. It's not sunny in Philadelphia. I'm sunny somewhere in Texas.
Yes, I know exactly where you are. It's sunny here too. We've been having some really nice weather in the 70s, and it's motivated me. I've been getting out in my garden and getting flowers planted and getting vegetables planted, and fun times when the weather starts getting nice, isn't it?
Oh, it's great. I'm actually looking at two of my flower beds right now. They're raised. They're cool looking. They have solar lighting, and they don't have anything in them just yet because they're fixing to get exactly what I want to put in there. So I'm being diligent, but the soil has definitely been getting packed in over the past 2 months. I've had to add, and it's finally come into where it's needed, and the acid levels are just right. Things are fixing to just be popping and hopping. It's going to be great.
Nice, Mr. Gardner.
But yeah, I have a bunch of surfboards and wind boards and bicycles on the other side of it, so it doesn't look too pleasant right now.
So you turn the camera around to the clean side of the yard, the barbecue.
Yeah, that's the that's the illustrious pit. What I accidentally did was I was cooking steaks, like big, thick, juicy steaks, and it's a gas grill. I hate cooking steaks on a gas grill, but I had them on a what do you call it? Anyway, I wanted to sear it with the flame first, and then I was going to put it up in the cast iron, and I forgot about it. And they were soaked in butter, just all that, Paula Deen was my inspiration for cooking anyway. So anyway, I come outside and the bottoms of them are charred. The 3-inch thick meat is now a 1/2 inch thick. So I was able to, luckily I was also cooking shrimp with it. So I was able to scrape all that off, and I created a surf and turf casserole. So it was, when you screw up, you really can't screw up steaks. I usually sit over there, but it was freezing cold when we were doing it. And I was just like, wow, it's nuts. But anyway, created my first surf and turf casserole. So I was able to scavenge what was left over the meat, mix it with the boiled shrimp, and have that with the garlic butter and all the other fun stuff. And it was just as good. It had that beach feel to it because of the crispy char and I just can't throw away meat, so I didn't want to feed the dogs either.
Sounds yummy. No invite, I realize, but
you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm just 1,000+ miles away. Come on over.
Right.
So
what do you think about this latest move by Ken Paxton to sue the Annunciation House? What do you think about that, Walter?
Well, I don't think he's got any balls if he doesn't go after everyone else too. I mean, Catholic Charities, Annunciation House is is one of Catholic charities. But if we go after the Catholic charities, where Sister Norma Pimenthal and where the federal government and where all the state and local governments have been funding their tax dollars to, what people don't realize is back in 2021, Harris County, Texas, gave, I think it was $150 million to Catholic charities for immigration services. So that was paid by the local taxpayer. Think about that going on in Philadelphia, Los Angeles, New York City, Chicago. The state, local, and federal governments have been paying all of these people to illegally process and maneuver, because we know that the Border Patrol, Customs and Border Patrol, has not been properly processing people. They've been processing people based upon unlawful and illegal policies, and that's what I'm hoping comes out in the Mayorkas impeachment. Although I'm not too hopeful the Senate's going to do much, because between your Miss Cinema and all the other ones, that's why we got to have a sheriff, a Mark Lamb in there. We got to have somebody that'll be able to actually fight, that'll be able to actually put the things forward. Not, I've got John Cornyn, so I just as much room to talk in Texas as anything else. John Cornyn cancels out Ted Cruz's vote. So, and Ted Cruz may not be one of my favorites either, but at least he's doing the right thing. Right. And we're going to find out what Mayorkas, the impeachment, is going to do. But Ken Paxton went up against the Annunciation House. That's great. Now he needs to go after Catholic charities, and we're going to find representatives like Dade Phelan was on the board of Catholic charities. What people don't know about Dade Phelan is he is a real estate and commercial investor. He specifically was renting for 3 times the price to Catholic charities and other people like that. So he was making money. Our top Republican in the Texas House was making money off of illegal immigration.
Oh my gosh. It doesn't surprise me.
Yep. It's, every time you peel back the onion, there's another tier.
This is a big moneymaker. These NGOs and anybody involved with them are making bank, man, and they don't want this to end, because I was saying a little bit earlier in my podcast, these people involved with these NGOs have probably surpassed middle-class Americans in their earnings right now, right?
Oh, no, totally. And then look at what the countries where they're sending the money back home to. Look at what those countries are making right now off the remittances that are not they're not being taxed. They're not being they're not spending their money here. They're sending all the money back home, and then those people are paying off the cartels, the smugglers, because we know that not all the smuggling is cartels. I mean, it's literally the Catholics, or Catholic charities. I don't want to say every single Catholic. Right. I have people from Venezuela that came in. They contacted me and they said, "Hey, wait a second. We watched your podcast and we came in the country how we were told to come in the country. We're here. We're legally working." And they physically said, "We were just registered to vote." And here's the worst part of all that. These are illegal aliens that are here, that are waiting to be processed. Their court dates are 5 and 6 years out. And this tells you how Americans they are, how worried they are. They said, "We lost our country to communism 20 plus years ago. What is happening here is exactly what happened there. They brought in all the illegals. They registered them to vote. They were able to flip the switch. And they're like, we came here for a better life. We didn't come here for part 2. And so that's why I'm like, wow. I mean, we physically have illegal aliens that came in, with the right, they were with the right motives, and they see what our people are doing to us. They see what the Democrats are doing to us, what our left is doing to us.
Well, and this is exactly why the Democrats want to erase history and get rid of all of this, because they don't want a reference for anybody to be able to go back to and see what's happened in the past, because this is their playbook, right? Socialist.
Yep. Communism through socialism is what it basically turns into. Right. And we're, it's doing its thing. It's going to happen. Well, it's not going to happen if we can prevent it. But this is what their goal is. This is what their ultimate, the ultimate thing that they want to do is they want to do what they did to Russia. They want to do what they did to China. And that's who's behind all this is the Chinese. The Russians are sitting over there laughing, and everybody that wants to, they want to put it out there. I mean, you have to look at it. Trump and America got duped by the Russian hoax that the Democrats put up in front, and now we're finding there's a lot of Democrats that were like, wait a second, we didn't think that was real, and then now that we found out it's real, now they're starting to come over in droves. So I'm wondering how much election fraud the Dems are going to push on whenever Trump comes out with 90 million votes or something like that. It's going to be unreal. I can't wait for the general election in November, but then again, I'm also not trusting of it either. I mean, they did it once. You think they're going to let it happen? You think they're not going to do it again?
Of course they are. And I've been listening to so much on the news. Obviously, Biden and his failed mental capacity, and it really doesn't even have anything to do with age, because I know people who are his age. I mean, my mother lived to be 96, God rest her soul. She just died this past August. And, she was smart as a whip, still had all of her mental capacities, could have a conversation. I mean, some other medical issues, prevented her from talking very clearly, but she knew everything that was going on. She was a sharp cookie. So it has to do with his mental capacity. And when you have somebody like that running the most powerful country in the world, that's a scary thought. So what do you think is going to happen at the Democratic convention, Walter, as far as replacing Biden and getting rid of Kamala?
No, so I totally feel like they're going to come out with a whole different slate. They have the ability to. Here in Texas, and this is what I was talking with Sandra about on her show just prior to yours, is these conventions. The reason why they're so important, and the reason why there's so much control they're wanting to bring through these conventions to your county party chair, your LD chairs, your precinct chairs, your state chairs, and then of course the RNC. We saw Ronna McDaniel finally, thank God, step down.
Right.
Mitt Romney no longer has. He's in the Senate still, but he no longer has the gavel through his niece. The bottom line is now there's a power struggle in the Republican side. You're going to see that happen on the Democrat side. Remember, they always come together. They come together thicker. They're able to work together, even if it's not towards the common goal. They're able to have their strength in numbers. And we're finding that out, like in Webb County and Laredo right now, whenever you go in, because they have polling at the same locations, whereas it used to not be that way. It used to be, the Republicans were voting in somebody's garage down the street because there's only 9 Republicans in the whole county and some of those southern counties. And so what they would do is they'd have them in somebody's garage. You were always shamed whenever you went in there because 9 out of 1,000 voters, and that's all you had. So now what they're doing is you walk in and they automatically give you a Democrat ballot. They automatically register you as a Democrat voter until you say no. And once you say no, they make a big deal about it. So we're finding where 1,200 people voted Democrat, 297 voted Republican. And then the other part of that flip side of that is there's not a lot of people early vote anymore because they know that they can change things back and forth. And that's how they would count. Hey, what's our tally for today? Okay, so we're down 3. So tomorrow we make sure we're up by 6. We're 6 over, whatever it is. So they can create that balance, and that's how early voting actually gets bastardized in the system. And at least in Texas, anyway, a lot of people wanted to stick through to the Mike Lindell and the stories of the voting machines and things like that. And I totally understand that, but that wasn't the case for a lot of South Texas. Whereas now, like specifically Webb County, Laredo, they got like a $2 to $3 million grant, and so Mark Zuckerberg bought them all new voting machines. How sweet was that?
Yeah, and the ballot stuffing, the ballot, it wasn't chasing, the ballot harvesting that the Democrats were doing in the 2020 and the 2022 election were unbelievable.
We actually have now what we like to coin in South Texas the ballot Uber or the ballot taxi. So they go out and they find people to fill out provisional ballots and go in and vote. And so because we still have open primaries, you can go out and find whomever.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Texas. And here's the sad part: a lot of Republicans fought for open primaries because, well, it's just not fair. Well, you know what else is just not fair? Uh, Joe Biden winning the election on stolen votes. So that's just not fair either. And if the Republicans would get their head out of their fifth point of contact, then we would be able to actually get in there and get the right thing done. And so this is why we do need to have those close primaries. You know what? They need to say Democrats over there, Republicans over there, because people don't need to. The primary is the most important for your party because it's going to, hey, this is who we're going to go with. Do you think the Democrats wanted to go with Biden and Kamala? I mean, the the we're now finding out about Burisma. We're now finding, I mean, stuff that we already knew about, you and I knew about. Now the Democrats were like, wait a second, special prosecutor this, special prosecutor that. Holy crud, we didn't know all that stuff was going on. But thank God they're not going to criminally punish him because he just didn't mean to do anything wrong. That wasn't the case. The bottom line is everybody knew that he was getting 10% for the big guy. I had a big huge sign, a 4 foot by foot sign on my truck that had Biden and his son that said 10% for the big guy, and we took that all over Texas. So,
Well, and here in Arizona, we have a closed primary. And of course, a lot of Democrats here in Arizona switch their party preference to Republican during the primary, and then they switch it back in between the primary and the general to try and sway things. And there was some rumors that Katie Hobbs' twin sister had switched her party preference to Republican during the 2022 election and had voted for Carrie Lake because they knew that Katie Hobbs was going to be able to beat Carrie Lake. And so, that kind of stuff goes on. It doesn't matter if it's an open or a closed primary. There's going to be crap going on that is, questionable. And why are these people doing it? Because they're afraid of some of these stronger new Republicans, conservatives that are coming forward to run for office, and they're afraid of them.
yep. Well, and keep in mind, they're not just the Democrats, the Republicans are afraid too. I mean, it's the Mitch McConnell establishment is losing out heavily now. What used to be controlled by DC consultants and DC lobbyists are now, the American people are waking up. They're getting tired of this crap. We had the phenomenon of George Santos. Good God. And that right there was going to be a huge loss because we technically won that seat as Republicans, even though it was through a fraudulent candidate. Do you think we're actually going to win that seat back to a Republican seat? It's not. Those people are never going to trust Republicans again in that district for quite some time because they got duped by George Santos. And folks like you and me saw, CPAC, we saw that stuff. Heck, I knew the guy. He'd called several times. I'm like, this is embarrassing. Can't believe this. This guy's out here running like this, and we knew he was going to be a sham. And then he actually makes it. And what does the establishment do? Hey, they strike a deal. So we know we're going to get rid of him. We know he's going to be impeached, or we know he's going to be thrown out of office. So he was voted out. And what do we have there now? Now we have a Democrat. And luckily, we got Orcus impeachment.
It's almost like they cut their nose off to spite their face because we have such a slim majority there in Congress. And all of these Democrats, I mean, look at Ilhan Omar, with her taxes and campaign spending. They don't do anything about those people because they want to hold on to every representative that they have. So how stupid are the Republicans that they do this sort of thing and put our very existence and the way that we're able to protect this country and its citizens from the Democratic evil agenda, they put it in jeopardy by doing this sort of thing. They knew, come on, even I knew watching it, that when that special election was held to replace him, we knew it was going to go back to Democrat, right? We knew it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you know what? I honestly don't even think it's because of fraud. I honestly think it's because voter apathy. They said, "Wow, we reached out, we took a chance, we went that direction, and we got bit for it." So they said, "You know what? No more." And this is where your Ronna McDaniels and all those people lose out. This is where they lost it for us because they never should have been supporting folks like that. They should have been supporting the proper candidates. I mean, look at Dan Crenshaw right now. Dan Crenshaw was everybody's favorite. Oh, Navy SEAL this. Oh, Navy SEAL that. I tell people, I said, my number one Navy SEAL is Eli. Holy crud! That guy out there. You want to talk about holding the line? That guy's holding the line up. And then and we have Dan Crenshaw here. He is actually he's in a bad spot right now. His election denial, the denial of election fraud, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's coming back to bite him. And he, he left Navy SEAL, went to work for Pete Sessions, got into Congress, and now he's $20 million richer for it. Again, how do people in their 30s join Congress and then physically make the millions that they're making?
Right. Yeah, it really does put a big question mark. And so many of these politicians who run say, I'm never gonna, get into that sort of thing. I'm never gonna let that happen to me. And I'm running for office, and I say this to the people, but I really feel like I'm different from other people because I've seen this and I talk about it and I expose it. But some of these people who are running for office, they come out of nowhere. We've got somebody running for the commissioner's office, I believe, the commissioner's something. And she was a Democrat. She says she's walked away, but somebody went to her Facebook page and she still had Black Lives Matters Los Angeles movement as organizations that she likes. And one of the people who's running against me, she works for a really heavily Democratic Arizona Child Alliance. We really have to be careful and look into these candidates, because are they plants? Are they coming in to upset? Are they coming in because they know that the Republicans and independent voters want a Republican in office because of the way this country and the economy is going? And so they're going to dub their candidates as Republicans. Do you find that happening over there in Texas?
Oh no, we have that happening here in Texas, and the George Santos thing was perfect for that. His agenda was not the Republican Party, and yet he thought for some reason that he could Republican himself up and go the direction he did. I mean, the guy was a drag queen in was it Brazil? Yeah, he was a drag queen in Brazil. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. We've been against the drag queen story hour as a party as a whole. Now, never mind the fact that Ronna McDaniel, didn't she had the LGBTQ neighborhood centers for us to get out the LGBTQ vote and create whatever weird propaganda the Republicans were supposed to create out of that. That was something that never should have happened. Most Democrats don't even like the drag queen stuff. I mean, it's literally just talking points. And whenever I talk to Democrats about, where are you at on the trans movement stuff? And they're like, oh God, this is embarrassing. Listen, I just go with the party because, that's what I have to do. And I'm sitting there going, wow, you can't stand up on principles. And here the Republicans are dividing themselves over dumb stuff, that doesn't matter, when we could be getting together and actually whipping these people, beating these people down. The Democrats, that is, just like they did the slaves back whenever they created slavery, back whenever they took the reparations from the slaves after Lincoln had given it to them. These are histories that nobody thinks about. Nobody talks about the fact that Mexico physically disabled and killed more Indians than Americans did, than the Anglos did. So while everyone tries to make it an anti-American issue, it's literally, look what happened on the border. The Mexicans went after the Apaches. The Mexicans went after the Cherokees. Nobody wants to discuss that kind of stuff because it's taboo.
Right. Well, erasing history is a famous thing. And I love that Kamala Harris is out on social media, on her Instagram account, saying, that Republicans want to erase history, and Republicans, want to ban books, and Republicans, it's just so hilarious. And it's so disheartening, because this leaves so many people just so confused and so disillusioned about politics. And I'm out door knocking, getting signatures on my petitions to get on the ballot. And there's a lot of people saying, I'm just so tired of politics. I just don't know that I'm going to vote this year. And I have a conversation with them about how important it is that they do vote, that this is not the time to give up, right?
Yep. You know what? Tell them to turn their TV off and turn the principles on. they don't have to watch the day-to-day stuff, but they have to have their voice heard. So
Yes,
that's
that's a good.
my son has a bunch of friends that are, liberals and Democrats and whatnot, or at least they say they are. They're not even old enough to vote yet. And I ask them, well, what are your leanings? Well, because Donald Trump, I'm like, well, take Donald Trump out of the equation, So tell me why you like Dan Crenshaw. Well, we don't. Oh, really? Well, what about the other guy running against him? Oh, it's a Democrat. They'll never win. Actually, no, it's a Republican. Are you sure they will never win? And then here that Republican Jameson Ellis is getting more and more endorsements over, and they're the ones that Dan Crenshaw used to have. So now it's they're going, wait a second, there's something else happening right now. We have people running in Congress like against Congressman Babb, and there's a guy running he ran against Morgan Luttrell the first time, and he has no clue about anything. He's a pipeliner, and I'm working man, and here's a pipe wrench, and here's I weld. But yet he's out there he's getting traction. He's and I'm not going to put the guy down because I'm hoping he's campaigning a lot better than he did when it was Morgan Luttrell running. And I remember, you were there with us down in South Texas when we watched the illegals that were being brought over by the National Guard at that time, and the mission was totally different. Now it's the same National Guard, but now their mission has changed. Now they're securing the border, whereas we see the Border Patrol agents. What are they doing? They're not securing the border. They're listening to unlawful policies, and that's the big difference. We have one thing I talk to people about is on a Republican primary ballot for propositions. We physically have on the ballot one of the propositions. I want to say it's 11 or 12. It's to restore it's for the party to do the legwork to restore our Texas constitutional amendment, which allows the attorney general, to prosecute election fraud. And the way that was undone was he actually tried to double jeopardy, and people don't know this. He tried to double jeopardy a Democrat, whereas the Democrat DA in that county did the right thing and said, hey, we're going to go ahead and send Zena Stevens of Beaumont. She committed a election fraud, and the election fraud she committed was she took $5,000 in cash from various people, but she reported it on her stuff. So it was obvious that she's that ignorant to those laws, and she should have had a better campaign, but she didn't, and she got caught. And he went ahead and sent it off to the Texas Ethics Commission, which fined her and did everything they were supposed to do. Well, then Paxton's people came in and said, no, we want to turn this into election fraud, and we want to go this route here. Well, we luckily have some very conservative judges that did the right thing. They read the state constitution. Our state constitution, if you talk to people about Ken Paxton, they'll tell you Ken Paxton's the top cop in Texas. Nowhere in our Constitution does it say that he is the cop at all in Texas. Nowhere in there does it say that he is to prosecute criminal activity. He has to work under the permission of the district attorney's office in each individual district. And keep in mind, we've got 254 counties. Sometimes we have 2 and 3 counties lumped together, but either way, we have over 100 districts. He has to ask permission to go in and prosecute cases. He is a civil attorney. And this is the problem that we have with people, the regular base that don't know what's going on. And so while everyone's saying, oh, they tried to impeach Ken Paxton, and I was totally dead set against that, the state constitution does not allow him to be the top cop. It does not allow him to usurp the district attorney powers. And if it did, then the question I have to ask is in 2020, when they were burning down all of our cities, why didn't he go into those cities? Because 2021 is when his verdict was read against him. In 2020, why didn't he go to those cities and start prosecuting BLM, Antifa? Never even made the concession to do so. Never even made the attempt. Not ever is it on there. So you can't have one without having the other. And the bottom line is the state constitution, all 258 pages that I read, are very clear. There's about 7 pages that refer to the attorney general's office and or his leanings, and they say nothing. They talk about child care. They talk about civil proceedings and whatnot. He is the attorney for the state, and if you look at it, what has the attorney for the state been doing? He has not been prosecuting all of the child trafficking that the Department of Family Protection Services and that the federal government has been accused of. Now we're finding Greg Abbott. We're seeing, this is stuff 3 and 4 years old. Now that Trump is back on the ballot again and is picking up steam, now we're seeing them do something about this. The question is, why couldn't they do this 3 and 4 years ago when it was first discovered?
See, I've been reading a lot of articles that are asking that question, Walter. Where has Abbott been and why has he allowed this to go on for so long? Because you see how successful what he's doing right now is for the the reduction in the numbers of people crossing the borders there in Texas, and the increase, of course, in Acumba and in Arizona. And so why didn't he do this back then? Because when we were down there in 2022?
No, 2021. Sorry. It was July. It was the morning of July 5th. Yep.
Yeah. So when we were down there, he could have been doing this way back then. But again, you didn't have the right people going to him with, this is what you can back this action up with. And so that is why it's so important to have the right people surrounding you and giving you the advice and looking into things and being proactive. That is why it's so important that you're
totally.
Yeah. Because I know that you had a lot to do with that, bringing it up to some of the the Abbott administration people. But it was interesting because when we were talking to the border czar, the Texas border czar, when I was there a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying, the reduction, unfortunately, Marianne, the reduction is going to mean that it's an increase of illegals coming to Arizona, and increase it has. And the Chinese are coming over in alarming numbers. I saw a very, very interesting, true meme where it was saying, these illegals from Afghanistan and Iraq and all these places in the Middle East, they're unvettable. So who are you going to call? The Taliban to find out who these people are? These Chinese people, who are we going to call? It's unbelievable to me that Mayorkas and Biden are ignoring the fact that these aren't just people coming here for a good life, that these are terrorists. There's terrorists coming over. Come on, spies.
Well, and what did you guys have happen to the north of you a couple weeks ago on a Sunday? Wasn't it Super Bowl Sunday?
Yes.
So
it was harder to get into the Super Bowl than it was to get into our country.
And did you see all of the commercials that were being run by CBP on their social media outlets where
gosh.
I know, I'm literally like, read the room, guys. I mean, guys work for the NFL, no problem. The National Football League, I'm only surprised that they didn't sit there with them. And the fact that they're like, we're securing this, we're securing that, they never should have been there. The way that looked across America, while all of America is invaded, and it's literally the fault of the Border Patrol agents that are in charge, of Jason Owens, the chief, of the down ballot guys, the ones that were cutting the wire in Texas. Again, I'm the one who tried to file criminal charges in Tom Schmerber's county of Maverick County, Eagle Pass, because that is a felony for anyone to do whenever it's state property meant for national security, and that's specifically what it was meant for. And the Attorney General turns around and says, we're going to sue. And so we're going back and forth on lawsuits whenever we should have had people in handcuffs. And even if it was just that literally would have empowered the agents to do the right thing. And the agents on the lower level, if you'll notice, they're graduating classes at their all-time low. The fact that they just had to replace the guy that was in charge of the National Border Patrol, the academy, because of whatever they're saying, domestic abuse. Whenever the guy that cut the wire, well, he's actually a convicted wife beater. He was on probation for for spousal abuse, and he's not even allowed to have a real gun. They have what's called rubber gun duty. So if you really want to get into the country illegally, go find a guy with a domestic assault charge, because he's not going to have a real firearm, because the federal government doesn't fire you. They just tell you, hey, you can't have the dangerous weapons you're not allowed to have per state law. So they'll obey one state law here, but then they'll violate the other state laws there. It does. Again, we're living in a land of disunity when we get to the bottom line on the laws. They obey some, and then they don't obey others. And then Mayorkas, those god awful hearings that we've been watching for the past several years, where he gets up there and he just flat out lies to him, and that's
Yeah.
what his impeachment is about, is the fact that he was lying. So how can he, on this certain date when he's given the question, is the border safe? Yes, the border's safe, but yet 13 terrorists and 2 million people just came through yesterday.
Right.
And we're seeing those numbers. You're seeing the
Well,
numbers.
and
Texas numbers have gone down.
we're over 6,000 Border Patrol agents short right now. They're offering $20,000 and $30,000 signing bonuses, and they can't even get people to sign up to be Border Patrol agents. I mean, why would any man or woman want to be a Border Patrol agent when you're being forced to completely do a job that's against the oath that you were forced to take?
Yep. Nope,
Right?
totally.
Well, not forced to take, but the oath that you took to protect the borders of our country.
Yeah,
And
that oath is required, and people make
right,
that. When you that is actually prosecutable. So when you lie on your oath, you can be removed or you can be arrested for doing the wrong thing. I mean, we've got agents that they were making $40,000 a year just to let cars through the cartel, for the cartel, knowing that this car over here has got a load of coke, so bring it on through. And they were on the payroll with these guys for years.
wow. That's just insane. But you've got, so you're 6,000 Border Patrol agents short. You've got this, border bill that was going through, and they were talking about hiring an additional 300 was all that was going to do. 300 Border Patrol agents who, as we all know, are going to become processors. And then the rest of the money that was going towards the southern border was really going to be to build more detention centers and to get technology back up, like this WhatsApp phone thing that they have, that these people sign up for asylum while they're down in Ecuador before they come through the Darien Gap. And they're all set to go the minute they arrive at our border. This is the type of thing that Mayorkas wants to put together so that it's completely hands off and they just come to the border, show them their phone, walk on in, right?
Exactly. And the walk on in thing, the big thing about Eagle Pass is that people were coming across a dangerous river. The federal government has always had the ability, they've always had control of those bridges to bring those people through. This was literally just theater. So this is where Mayorkas also stands in the balance of his impeachment. He has he has electively committed negligent homicide. He has committed negligent manslaughter. He has passed those negligence death charges down to the agents that were sitting there saying, "Hey, come across," because in federal court, the same people that were cutting the wire literally were told by the federal court justice, "Hey, by the federal court judge, by the way, you were supposed to be standing in the middle of the river, preventing these people from coming in." And yet, we see the Border Patrol agents have been now they're locked out of Shelby Park, period. But at one point they were behind the National Guard, who was behind the wire, who was behind the other National Guard guys, and then the state boats. So the Border Patrol was there just to rescue people that were getting hurt because the federal government was driving them through. And who hurts there, and specifically in Eagle Pass? The fact that 50% of Eagle Pass's revenue comes off of people coming through the bridges. So the federal government literally was stealing from the locals because that was the deal. They were supposed to split the earnings of who came across those bridges. I mean, they literally give them millions upon millions of dollars, but yet they don't do anything for them to pay a toll. They could have had them a safer route to come across the bridge, and that's the humane side of me saying that. They should be coming across at all, but
Right.
why are they forcing them to work for the smugglers? Why are they forcing them to come through down into dangerous waters? How many children did Mayorkas kill with those policies? How many children did Jason Owens kill with those policies that he enforced, that he passed down? You must enforce these. The confusion that was created. These are those items there. And keep in mind, these are both Republicans and Democrats that were doing this. It wasn't just one or the other.
Well, and I was really surprised, Walter, when I was down there at Shelby Park to see there's Shelby Park, and above it is the walking bridge that goes where all the pedestrians are supposed to be coming. That was really mind-boggling to me because I thought, wait a second, when you're not down there, when you don't pay attention, when you don't ask the right questions, you don't find this sort of thing out. And so in my mind, what I visualized where Shelby Park was completely different than when I got down there and actually saw the bridge right there.
Yeah. So, and that's another thing for the Mexicans. The Mexicans were segregating the illegal immigrants off. So the illegal immigrants in their country, because they're illegal aliens in ours, the illegal immigrants in their country were given travel visas and travel passes to hurry up and get there. But yet they were not allowed to shop and go through the normal commercial areas where you would want to go get a street taco, where you'd want to go shopping, where you'd want to go do this, because they were being held as slaves by the smugglers and the cartels a little farther outside of the city to be placed in buses, brought in, and then all for show. We're going to dump off 200-300 people an hour, whereas the bridges were only allowed to process 400 people a day, yet 4,000 a day were coming underneath of the bridge, and that's
Right.
just Eagle Pass. You're looking at numbers of more than 3 million just for Eagle Pass over the past couple of years. That's it. 3 million. So that's the biggest thing for me is people keep talking about 5 and 8 million. Oh, there's 10 and 11 million. I talked with Sheriff Lamb and we're like, dude, we're literally sitting between 15 and 20 million dollars. Do the math. Do 15 and 20 million illegal aliens that have entered the country. Do the math. The asylum seekers. If you go on CBP's webpage or Twitter, they put out these tweets, these god awful stupid tweets. It is against the law to come into the country. But yet, what are they doing? Oh, yeah. Here's a towel. Here's your shower curtain. I mean, it literally looks like the Ritz freaking Carlton with a green stripe on the van. They literally need to. If I could get a hold of an old DHS bus with a green stripe, that's exactly what I would do. It would be the Waltz Carlton, and come on in, do my thing. Let me register as an NGO, do whatever I need to do. And again, here we are. How many years later, we're finally seeing lawsuits in the federal government against these non-governmental organizations that have been illegally trafficking people for years now.
Right. And it's state law in Arizona, the SB 1070 with Russell Pierce. It's against the law in Arizona to transport illegal aliens, no matter who you are. Even if you're law enforcement, it's illegal for you to transport them through the state of Arizona. So all of these buses that are coming up from the border and dropping them off into hotels in the valley, and then you have buses and vans that go pick them up at the hotels and take them to the airport. Something should happen to those people who are transporting them, but it's not.
Yep.
And something like what Abbott did with Shelby Park makes people go, holy crap, look at what Abbott's doing. So that's what Arizona needs to do. We need to have somebody with big enough or strong enough backbone to start arresting these bus drivers and make people go, holy crap, it's against the law to transport illegals in this state, right? The shock factor.
Not just the bus drivers. Impound the buses and put them up on, those people are a commodity, whether people like to hear that or not. The bottom line is that's for the NGO. Those people are commodity. They're no better than a bag of cocaine. That's literally all they are to the cartels. That's all they are to all these NGOs. That's all they are to the Democrats up north. And for the Democrats up north to be screaming the way they are, they're the ones who asked for this. They're the ones who are benefiting off this because they know they're getting the voters. But as long as they sit there and scream back, hey, I can't believe this is happening. Oh no, they're invading our country. Stop, go away. And yet secretly they're sitting over there going, hey, leave the door open, let another 3 or 4 in. I mean, this is ridiculous that they're even playing these games because they know in the end, when it comes time to start removing people, even if they only remove half, we've got at least 10 million illegals that are going to stay. And in 2030, they're going to be counted by the census.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
They're already voting right now. Did you know that
Right.
the state of Oregon has mail-in ballots only? They don't have in-person voting at all, and they haven't for decades. Like people don't know this. I called several elected officials up there. It's like, is this really how it's going? Yes, you only have mail-in ballots. That's it. And so, what is the Oregon Health and Human Services doing? They are registering people that are coming in. Do you know what the numbers look like? The identification numbers of these people that come in to the U.S. illegally, what they're given by the Department of Homeland Security, by Border Patrol? They're given a 9-digit number. Does anything else that you know of sound vaguely familiar with having a 9-digit number as well?
Social Security.
Ah, bingo! Look at that. So all you got to do is put the dash, after the first three, and then count to two. Put your second dash in there, and now all of a sudden you have a right to work. You have the ability to fill out an I-9.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
And it's little things like this that Americans need to be aware of, because there's so much going on behind the scenes to elevate these illegal aliens to a status that American citizens will no longer be afforded the luxury of, right?
Well, and not just that, but look at the people that have been waiting in line long enough. This whole thing has been created by immigration attorneys. If you look at who's in Congress, 9 times out of 10, well, 6 times out of 10, you're going to find their attorneys. And what are they doing? They are physically the ones that are holding the immigration system at bay. And the immigration laws don't need to be reformed; they need to be enforced. And creating the confusion that Mayorkas created, that Biden created, with how we enforce the border situation. Literally, all they got to do is stop it. The duties of the agent, literally in Title 8, specifically, not Title 8 of the U.S. Government Code, the USC, the United States Code. Title 8 does state that they are supposed to repel those individuals. They're supposed to turn them back. That's their first course of action. How are you supposed to turn them back whenever you're behind the barbed wire, when you're behind the first set of National Guard, when you're behind the state police? It doesn't make sense at all. And it's because they were processing. They were babysitting. They were making sure that people got through the way that people got through. It was deliberately done, and it was a deliberate act of sabotage.
Right. Man, we have gone over my time, but I mean, I could talk to you for hours, Walter. It's always so interesting having a conversation with you. I appreciate you taking your time today. Do you promise you're going to come on again?
Oh, heck yeah, heck yeah. I'll be back on my post by this weekend. So I'm just getting some things done. My son turned 18, so he went to vote for the first time, and
Oh,
thank God he voted the right way. What's funny is I was going, I know who you are, I know what kind of stuff he gets, and he said, you know what, I'm voting in a Republican primary, and these are things I want to look at. And I had an opinion, obviously, for every person that we went down the whole entire ballot. For us, where
wow.
we're at, there were 5 pages, and over a page and a half of our county ballot was new precinct chairs. And the sad part about our conventions going on, we're having, we have a fake Republican. What is he doing? That's been in office. He's literally he didn't forget. He deliberately did not put down where we're supposed to attend our precinct conventions, which is always a notice that gets put out whenever the elections start. It's not even on their website. So we've gone through the process of Secretary of State. I now know what the fines are for this, and the fact it's a Class A misdemeanor. So that's all I've been doing, is making sure the Secretary of State gets peppered with things. And they called me back to say, if any of these are fraudulent on your part, you're going to get hit too. And I'm like, yeah, nope. My opinion is my opinion, but here's the facts. Things are not where they're supposed to be. People are not campaigning how they should be. Here's the laws that clearly defines it. Here, and whenever you quote a blind chapter and verse, all they can do is say, okay, the bad signs, $500 per sign, up to $15,500 per campaign. And so I'm like, I'm going to make sure that each and every complaint makes its way up to where people lose $15,500 until they decide
Wow.
they're going to run as a Republican correctly, and Democrat too.
Yeah. It's a lot of work, isn't it? Keeping up on all of the stuff that's happening. I mean, and so many people, I understand they work. I understand they have a young family and stuff, but people really need to start getting more involved. And I'm
Well,
encouraging my viewers from Arizona to step up and get involved, become a precinct committee woman or man, and start going to your legislative district meetings and meet with your representatives who are down at the Capitol representing you. You need to get involved.
big time,
So,
big time.
all right. Well, I'm going to let you go so you can get on with your day. Again, thank you so much, Walter. It was so good to see you and talk to you. And I'm going to schedule you again very, very soon.
All right, you take care.
Bye. All
All
right, you
right, bye
too.
bye.